This week on the Destination Angler.
It takes practice. And so those bonefish, they offer that. And really, it's a good way to catch a permit. When people are bonefishing, they're feeling good. They've made some casts, so they're more cooperative. And all of a sudden, guide will be like, hey, here's a permit. There's a permit coming. And it's like, okay, grab your permit rod. And of course, it's a total goat rodeo to get the rod because you didn't have it laid out perfectly. And so you're fumbling around the boat trying to get it. They're like, be quiet, and you're doing your best. But all of a sudden you felt good because you're bone fishing, and then you make a good cast to a permit. And that's one of the biggest things.
Welcome to the Destination Angler Podcast, the podcast for anglers who travel. And I'm your host, Steve Haigh. We go right to the source, the local guides and experts, to build your knowledge of top fishing locations around North America. It's a big world out there. Now go and fish it.
I'm going away for a while, but I'll be back soon. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hey anglers, welcome back to another episode of the Destination Angler, brought to you by New England Nets, makers of handmade landing nets of exceptional quality that will complement your catch of a lifetime. And by Trout Routes, the #1 fishing app, helping you find new trout waters so you spend less time on the road and more time doing what you love, trout fishing. And by Anglers Coffee, perfecting the coffee experience for the fly fishing community and anglers everywhere with small batch coffee delivered to your doorstep. It's darn near perfect. We've got some amazing shows coming your way on the Destination Angler: the Clarion River in Pennsylvania, the Black Hills of South Dakota, Devil's River in Texas, and the Provo River in Utah, just to name a few. And be sure to backcast to catch the last episode of the Destination Angler on the world-famous White River in Arkansas with Chad Johnson. If you're looking for a brown trout the size of your leg, the White is where to go, and Chad is your guide to take you. You won't want to miss these shows. And remember to hit that subscribe button to catch all the Destination Angler episodes coming your way. And if you like the show, please tell a buddy. Want to be the first to hear about new episodes? Well, head on over to the Destination Angler website and become a subscriber. You'll be registered to win a beautiful handmade wooden landing net by New England Nets. These things are valued at $135, and let me tell you, they are special. This week's winner is Ed from Seattle, Washington. Congratulations, Ed, and thank you for listening. And today our destination is Cayo Cruz on the north shore of Cuba. And our guest is Matt Sprecher, hosted trip expert and owner of Alaska Steelhead Co. Cuba is quickly gaining a reputation for world-class permit and bone fishing. Here you'll step back in time with flats fishing reminiscent of the Florida Keys 60 or 70 years ago. Fly fishing in Cuba means schools of trophy fish, low pressure, and enormous areas of pristine flats where the fishing is so good it borders on chaos. No kidding. Matt has quite an interesting story. After dropping out of college in 2001, he moved to Colorado and became a house painter. Along the way, he picked up a fly rod and worked as a rookie guide in Vail, eventually starting his own fly shop and guide service, which became one of the largest in the country. He sold the shop, and now he owns 2 steelhead lodges and runs hosted trips. And guess what? He doesn't have to paint houses anymore. So let's hear from Matt as he gives us the lowdown on the fishing experience in Cuba and shares some great permit and bonefish tips, top fly patterns, and why in the world he brings magic markers and cheese whiz on every trip. Hey, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on here to talk about Cuba. You and I first were talking about Alaska, and then you said, you also take trips to Cuba. And I thought, that sounds super interesting. So anyway, we're going to get into Cuba and all that that's about. But I did want to ask you a little bit about your lodge in Alaska. What's the fishing like up there?
It's like everything you picture in Alaska. Alaska is just super fruitful with the trout fishing and, of course, the salmon fishing and halibut and king crab's having a problem these days, but yeah, it's just very plentiful, and it sometimes it bounces around. Certain runs are better on certain rivers, certain years, but we concentrate on steelhead, and so we're there, the end of August, but end of August and September and October is when you want to be there. That's when the steelhead come after the silvers, and kind of during when the silvers are coming. There's some late runs too, so. We have some other bycatch, which makes it just kind of a, more well-rounded trip. Steelhead can be difficult. And so having a backup plan, whether there's like a lot of rain or they're late or something, or just being weird. But we're super fortunate. We're known for a lot of numbers up there, and they're right out of the ocean, sea lice covered, kind of tail walking, nutty steelhead.
Really?
So
Oh,
yeah. So we kind of describe it as like a treat for steelhead fishermen that, because a lot of days when you go most places, it's a big deal to get one, in a day. And like I said, we're pretty fortunate. We're known for numbers, the majority of the time.
yeah. And then you've got a place in Idaho too, right? For the same thing?
Yeah. And so Idaho, that is that one draws a lot of customers too because they're so big, and they also get like red bands on them and stuff. And people love the colorful, steelhead. A lot of steelhead fishermen, we like those chrome bright ones right out of the ocean.
Yeah.
But some people really enjoy, they like, oh man, the colors on those are so cool. And it's really reminiscent of the Clearwater River. And the Clearwater River is the oldest run of steelhead in the United States. And it has these bee-run steelhead, and they stay in the ocean an extra year, and that's why they're so big. And
okay.
but and they're it's a neat run of fish. I mean, they travel through like 6 or 7 dams. And 650 miles, like roughly, to get to where we fish. So it's pretty cool.
No kidding.
Yeah, trip. People love that one. Both the Alaska and the Idaho trip. Like, I'm a little different. I'm not like in all the travel stuff out there, where it's like, okay, I have hundreds of destinations, like some of the bigger booking agents out there. I just specialize in like ones that were overlooked, ones that I found. And Alaska and Idaho are my 2 favorites, and so people love coming back for those trips.
And of course, Cuba. So
Yep, I
that's
know.
kind of what we want to. That's what we want to talk about today. So, all right. So, my first question about Cuba is like, how long has Cuba been open to Americans? It's kind of a recent thing, isn't it?
Well, it's been open. It just depended on like what visa, and it also depends on like which. If we have a Democrat or Republican in the office, Democrats, Obama kind of like reinvigorated relationships, and made it a lot easier and for Americans to go to Cuba, like anybody. And what's unique about fly fishermen, for once, it's like we're considered educational, so it's always been pretty easy to go. Now, that doesn't mean there's not like complications, with going to another country just in general. But yeah, it's kind of a misconception that people thought, oh yeah, you couldn't go there. And you did have to be sneaky sometimes, for a while, and go through Mexico or go through Canada, to get there. But it's been open for years now. And
Okay.
yeah. So it's definitely like a misconception. So
Huh. And do you have to? Does the trip have to be? You said something about being educational. Does it have to be an educational trip to get in Cuba today, or can I just go because I want to go?
people can go, and there was like a people to people visa that was fine for a while. And if teachers went, they bring like school supplies. So yeah, so tourism is fine, but a little more complicated, but also kind of like another misconception. I brought my grandma and my mother-in-law there for my birthday once, and they were concerned about getting in, and I was like, no, it's fine. I was like, you guys are teachers, but really anybody can go, and especially these days.
Okay.
But it's easier for us because it is considered educational. They've taken conservation to really good levels in Cuba, and it's all catch and release and stuff. So we don't actually do anything that's educational. There is some like, I don't know, like a little presentation that you could do, but you never do it. It's just something it's a hoop we have to jump through with the
Okay. The
government.
educational piece.
Yeah. So
All right. So, what gets you so excited about Cuba? I mean, it sounds like it's not the easiest place to go, but why is it such a top destination in your mind for fly anglers?
well, it was. I mean, it's basically, people describe it as like the Keys, 50, 60 years ago. And, to have like a fishery, that can be compared to something that long ago. And to this day and age, actually like
Yeah,
that quality of fishing.
that's pretty
That's what
cool.
gets me, excited. Yeah. I mean, I'll probably talk about it, more, but I'm specifically a permit fisherman, and, I'm not the best. I'm always getting better, but, I don't know if there really is a good permit fisherman out there. It's like, it's such a difficult fish to go after. I don't know if anybody could say any of us are really, really good at it.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, yeah, and it's that challenge. I think it's a fly fisherman thing, just like it's an archery, elk hunter, deer hunter thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, how hard can we make it? It's like steelhead swinging versus using an indicator. We're always like looking for like the most challenging, and I guess with Cuba and the challenge of fly fishing, the challenge of saltwater fly fishing, which is the most difficult fly fishing. I mean, honestly, I think it is to be able to, have success and bring even anglers that have never saltwater fished there and watch them be successful and be happy and learn a lot because of the opportunities they're getting. That's what really gets me excited about Cuba is and really Cayo Cruz. It's a special place, and anybody can do it.
Yeah. What's Cayo Cruz? Is that like a region? What is that exactly?
That's my like main destination. It's really the only place I go. I love it there. It's the newest fishery. I mean, people have only been fishing there since 2011, so that's kind of unheard of.
Okay.
So it's super fresh. I mean, it's at this point it's 12 years old, but that's pretty new in this game. So
Yeah.
but yeah, Cayo Cruz is just one of 6 main destinations. There's about 8 or so that are like the big ones. A company called Avalon, who I work with, that has the company that and actually has the permits to all these premier destinations of Cuba. They've been doing it for over 30 years.
So you got to go through Avalon.
Yeah, you really do. There's some other people that have tried it, but it's pretty difficult to deal with the Cuban government. So some tried it and it didn't work out and stuff. And I don't know if anybody will ever be able to work through the government issues in Cuba besides Avalon. So, but yeah, they've got the good ones, the really, really sought after ones, of course, because they've been doing it so long. So yeah, that's my main destination that I focus on.
Okay. So that's on the North Shore. And I was looking on a map. It looks like there's a lot of lagoons and inlets and things like that. But can you kind of talk about what's the topography there?
So it's Cayo Cruz is an island, and it's got a lot of opportunities for wading, which is really good. There's a lot of like backcountry. So people that like bone fishing and they like to walk and wade to do it. I don't think there's a better place in Cuba to do that. But then, and from the boat is great too. You don't have to walk for them, but like lots of people really enjoy that. Bonefish, the size of them and just like the numbers of them is one thing that Cayo Cruz is known for. But the main thing Cayo Cruz is known for is permit fishing. It's gotten pretty hard on the guides because it's known as one of the best permit fisheries in the world,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, so that could be a lot of pressure on them. But the reason it's such a good permit fishing is you're so close to the ocean, and it's you can those permit will come all the way into the flats, but they at least get to go back out into the ocean and chill. So it makes the permit fishing good year round. So when I host trips or just send people, I don't always go when I'm sending customers there, but I'll do it all year round. It just kind of depends. If people want tarpon, too, then it's a spring summer thing. But the permit and the bonefish are there. So if you're going for permit, really, you can do it year round. I like to look at the tides and moon phases and stuff like that for all my guests. And really, if a new moon's great, but you can't always get that, and things don't set up right. Like so you could have a new moon, but the high tide is at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then the other ones before you're fishing. So you need the high tide rising throughout the day. And ideally, that doesn't mean you're not gonna. If it's not, that you're not gonna, do well
Right.
permit fishing. But ideally, those are the things you're looking for. So I'll look at tides, and I want to see the biggest tides possible rising throughout the day, and that's what I look for.
Okay. And you plan your trips around those tides? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do. If it's a hosted trip, you can bet. I've picked it specifically based off what Avalon has available. Of course, I can't just take everything, and I'm not the only person that does this. But yeah, I won't really book it unless it's good tides.
The tides are key then. No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a lot of like lagoons and backcountry stuff, but then there's some good it's white sand, like hard packed and some soft packed stuff. But it's nice. It's just got a little bit of everything. You can catch those permit, when you're bone fishing, but certain sectors, they break these the fishing up into the areas into different sectors. And so there's really 6 main sectors you're going to fish, and there's a 7th and an 8th. But now that they're actually making that like its own destination, Cayo Cruz, and so that's another kind of new one they're messing with now, and it's another land-based trip that you can do. Cayo Cruz is a land-based trip. A lot of the other destinations, you'd stay on a liveaboard yacht, and that's super cool and it's fun. But not everybody's into it, and sometimes it can complicate things with some people's travel if they have any issues getting to Cuba.
It's pricey too, isn't it?
The liveaboards are the price goes up, and I like to keep good pricing for all my customers too. And so for the money, I don't really think there's much better. There's a place or two in Mexico that rivals it, but there's just not. I mean, for the money, it's the best. I mean, you still can go for $4,000 for 7 nights, 6 days, and
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's starting to go away. Even these saltwater trips in other countries, they're getting to be $5,000 or more when they used to be in the threes. So things are just changing.
No kidding.
But yeah, it's affordable.
Huge news, folks. The #1 fishing app, and I'm talking Trout Routes here, has been updated to include the entire lower 48. That's 50,000 streams mapped and classified into 4 categories and 350,000 hand-curated public access points marked and ready for you to explore. There's nothing more exciting than finding that new trout stream or access point. I'm a huge fan of Trout Routes because they make it so easy. Say goodbye to stumbling around country roads looking for your next spot, because Trout Routes provides every detail you need for each stream, including public and private bridges, stream flows, trail access, where to park, camping opportunities, boat ramps, and more. No service, no problem. You can save maps for offline use. With Trout Routes, I've found dozens of new streams and access points I never would have known about. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for Trout Routes today on your Apple or Android phone. How much land, like in miles or however you want to describe it, is there to fish? Like, how big are these different sectors?
Well, the Cayo Cruz is like, they say it's like 366 kilometers, like square kilometers. So they'll do, when we first were fishing, it was more like 8 skiffs. Now sometimes they'll have, 10 skiffs, and sometimes if they get super busy, they'll have 11. And so they used to say each skiff would have 50 square kilometers, to fish.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so what it is, too, is there's no other company there. So once you get the permit, which Avalon has most all of them, you're not going to see another lodge. You're not going to see another outfitter. You're not going to see any commercial fishermen because it's been banned for 50 years. All these fisheries are catch and release, including Cayo Cruz. And so I'd say these days, you kind of see one boat in your group, sometimes 2, like throughout the whole day, and you might just be passing them, or something. So yeah, you're not like fishing with even your friends and other boats. It's a big enough place. Like if this was in Mexico or something, there could likely be 6 other lodges there
in the same area.
Yeah. So it's that's part of the reason why when you asked, what gets me excited about Cuba, that's another thing. Is it's a pretty low pressure on these fish with just one company, out there.
Is it a flies only sanctuary? I read that somewhere. Is that right?
It is, yeah. And really it all is. I mean, you can bring a spinning rod and, use it for like barracuda or something like that. But it's catch and release. And Cayo Largo is like fly only. Like that's one they've had for, God, since like 2011 or something. And so that one's like legit fly only. But yeah, it's basically all you're doing is fly fishing. There's really no reason. But occasionally, like I said, you can bring people that have never saltwater fly fish before. It's an awesome destination for beginners. And really, because the bone fishing is so good. You catch jacks too and stuff. And so, yeah, it's a very fruitful fishery.
So you're saying it's good for beginners because beginners are getting a lot of feedback through hookups.
Exactly. And that's a good way to learn. That's what I always told people, in the trout days was when you get a lot of opportunities, I really found that people learned a lot more. If you're sitting there and it's a tough day of fishing, they miss that other, part of the fishing trip of like, okay, how do I land these? What happens when they do this and run that way? Or, and everybody's got to figure out their line management. So yeah, when you have more, eager fish, yeah, you tend to learn faster.
That makes sense. Yeah. So give me an idea of what's a decent day? Like on permit can be all over the board, I know, but what's a decent day for permit down there? Decent day for bonefish?
You catch one permit a day. That's a great day.
Anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Anywhere. I don't even care if it's Cayo Cruz, which is one of the best in the world. I'm stoked if I catch really one for the week or two for the week. I've gotten better over the years. So sometimes I like to look for like 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 permit for the week, but that's an epic week. I'm stoked when I go home. And these last 2 trips that I did in February and January, they were really good. We had 8 caught between the group of 16 and then both weeks. But we also had like over 10 other permit eat, and just mistakes happened, with line management. So when we're having upwards of 20 permit eat the fly in 6 days, with a group of 16 anglers, yeah, I'm very happy with those numbers.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen many places anywhere in the world.
Right, Matt. What's your number? Your permit number?
I'm only in the teens. I'm at 13.
Is that right?
Yeah, I swear.
Okay.
After all these years too, and I've been permit fishing real seriously for not quite 10 years, like very seriously, like the last 6 years. Like I don't mess around at all anymore. Before, it was kind of like go on a saltwater trip, catch all species. I don't recommend this, but I literally, all I do is permit fish. I don't even really tarpon fish. Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to get to 100 before I die. They're my favorite fish.
Tell me, why are they your favorite fish? Sounds like a real bear, but why are they your favorite fish?
Yeah, well, one, they're extremely cool looking, and to get your hands on them, see them in person,
I want to see some pictures of you holding these things.
Yeah, I've got some good ones. I love showing them.
All right.
They're so cool, and they're so hard to catch. I'm fine standing on the front of the boat and not catching a permit all week, and I'm still going to go permit. If I had to go permit fishing the next week, I'll go do it again the next week. So, but that's, like I said, I don't recommend it. It is partially what it takes to catch them. I mean, if you want to catch a permit, you have to be permit fishing. You can't be bone fishing. You can't be tarpon fishing. So they come around when you're doing that. So you keep those rods close by. If you're bone fishing, or even we see permit with tarpon there too. And so you always have those rods ready to go in the boat.
Oh my gosh.
Touch on. But yeah, I'm a weirdo. I love them. I just love how hard they are.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about bonefish for a while. Tell me, what's a decent day bone fishing down there?
Well, what's really, I mean, that's almost like the star of the show is the bonefish there. Permit really are. It's known as a permit destination, but those things, you've heard the numbers. How many you can catch in a week. So it's nice to go for the other really popular and awesome fish, which is, the 4 to 5 pound, on average size bonefish. And they're eager, they eat a lot of flies. I've seen them eat so many different flies. Some of the popular ones are like gotchas or crazy Charlies or bonefish scampies or mantis shrimp. But they're not super picky, and there's schools of them. And yeah, it's so when people really, really want to get better at saltwater fishing, get up to that point, where, they want to successfully permit fish, it takes practice. And so those bonefish, they offer that. And really, it's a good way to catch a permit. When people are bone fishing, they're feeling good. They've made some casts, so they're more cooperative. And all of a sudden, guide will be like, "Hey, here's a permit. There's a permit coming." And it's like, "Okay, grab your permit rod." And of course, it's a total goat rodeo to get the rod because you didn't have it laid out perfectly. And so you're fumbling around the boat trying to get it. They're like, be quiet, and you're doing your best. But all of a sudden, you felt good because you're bone fishing, and then you make a good cast to a permit, and that's one of the biggest things. But you asked about bonefish, so I'll stop talking about permit.
That's all right.
But
that's all right.
But it's just people. If you bonefish all week, it's not abnormal to catch a 9 or 10 pounder, there. And like I would say, even with beginner anglers, I mean, I've seen them catch, over 10 a day. Like
wow.
you can go to some places like in the Bahamas where they feel like, I mean, not everywhere. There's some really good places in the Bahamas, but man, some of them you cast to are really smart. And it's just not like that really in Cuba. There's some are, of course, the big ones are. Sure. That's how they got big. It was not being dumb. But yeah, it's a good day, I'd say, is like, 8 bonefish, and then, maybe you messed up a shot on a snook, it ate the fly, and maybe you cast it as a barracuda, and it ate the fly too. Or there's tarpon around, resident tarpon, when it's not spring and summer. So you got a lot of opportunity for other species. So people that go into the trip kind of wanting to just see it and do everything, they tend to do the best. And on back to permit, those are the guests that tend to catch the permit. People that want permit too bad, like me in my earlier days. Huh. Yeah, it's just not like always effective that way. You kind of beat your head against the side of the skiff, if you don't just change it up and say, let's just go after whatever species. And when you do that, I always see good things happen. People that have that attitude of like, oh yeah, well, it's not the best time to do it. Let's go do something else. It just seems like that's always how good things happen.
That's cool.
Yeah. My buddy just went to Mexico. We go down there a lot. And I had his rod that he left in Cuba. I was like, hey, leave this here just in case I need it for some guests. And I forgot to bring it home and send it to him before he went to Mexico. So he borrowed one of my other buddies and then left it in the airport. And so,
whoops.
And so, I'm like, oh my God. And so he gets there and has to borrow one of the guide's rods. And it was a decent rod, but it had horrible fly line on it. And so he's like, oh no, I'm totally screwed now. And I'm like, no, man, this is like how this stuff happens. You're going to end up using, his name's Andreas. He's like, you're going to end up using Andreas's rod. He's probably got something. It'll be fine. And watch, something good will happen. And he did. He caught like almost a 20-pound permit on this. They ended up like, he had the reel. So he's like, oh, let's put this reel, my fly line on your rod. And he caught on a floating crab. I was like, I told him before he left too, I'm like, don't worry about it, man. I'm like, this is how the good stuff happens,
Oh my gosh. Hey anglers, well, you've heard me talking about Angler's Coffee now for over a year now, and I have a question for you. Have you tasted it yet? If you have, then you know what I'm talking about. It's darn good coffee, isn't it? And if you're like me, tasting's believing. And believe me, this coffee tastes great. My wife and I are hooked on it. That's because Angler's Coffee offers an impressive spectrum of flavor profiles, so there's something for everyone, like their smooth medium roast El Care Caddis blend. Using beans from Central America and Indonesia with a perfect balance of body and aroma, the Caddis blend gives creamy sweet tasting notes of milk chocolate and clove. It's a real crowd pleaser. Save 10% with a custom subscription like I did and pick the coffee blends you want delivered to your doorstep. If you're not 100% satisfied, they'll give you your money back, no questions asked. A percentage of each sale goes to some great nonprofit organizations that directly impact the fly fishing community. So put a smile on your face and give it a shot. That's anglerscoffee.com. Tasting's believing. Well, kind of give us an idea what to expect from the fishing experience. Like how's the equipment? The boats. What are the guides like? And we can talk about food in a minute because I want to hear about the food. But what's all that? What's it like? What kind of gear are they using? The boats and everything.
So most like pretty much every destination in another country, you need to bring your own equipment. So I do not recommend. I just had an issue with this in the last month of renting equipment in Cuba. So that could be available sometimes, and that could work, but you never know what happened to it. These guys work year round. There's not like an off season. In places in Mexico, they'll take a couple months off here and there, but a lot of lodges will, or most of them. But here they work year round, and so if you get there, that's all you got. So there's plenty of people that rent equipment these days, specifically because travel has gotten so popular. And of course they can't get flies in Cuba. They can't get rods. They can't get new fly line that just got destroyed on some coral. And so you could be picking up that rod if you're trying to rent it there. So do not rent equipment in Cuba. It's nothing against Avalon. It's just the nature of this business and fishing and guiding and everything. It's just stuff gets beat up pretty quick. You're messing with some very, very strong fish. We have multiple rods broken every week. Multiple.
Oh, really?
Yeah. These fish, all it takes is one little mistake, fly line wrapping around the tip, just anything in the boat, or just breaking, a fly hit the rod from a bad cast 2 days before, and now you get a bigger fish on and it broke the rod. So it's very easy to break rods. Tarpon will break rods like crazy too. So that's another way.
So bring an extra rod, bring 2 rods maybe.
Yeah. Really what's best for this trip is you need an 8-weight. Just in case. 7-weight would be fun for bonefish and some jacks and stuff, but you never know when you're going to get the wind. You can look at the forecast all you want, before you go there, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be the weather, just like anywhere else. So you really want an 8-weight for bonefish, and then I like to have 2 permit rods, especially if you break one. So if you have a 9-weight and a 10-weight, maybe put the shrimp on the 9-weight and put the crab fly on the 10-weight. If you break your bonefish rod, at least you got that, 9-weight that you can use for bonefish too. And then because the resident tarpon are smaller, not necessarily smaller, but just not giants, you can use a 10-weight for tarpon there. And 11-weight's kind of more popular these days for tarpon. People used to use 12-weights a lot, but they only get, even during the migration, I've had one guy catch a 100-pound tarpon.
Okay.
Which is a giant, that's a big tarpon, but we've heard all the stories, you go to places like the Florida Keys and they get substantially bigger than that. So they're using 11 weights, so just so you know, when you're going for 50 pounders, mainly your 10 weight's fine. But, so if you're like, okay, let's use that for, tarpon, 2, then again, that's why it's good to have 2 permit rods. If you're interested in permit, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise just bring what you got and then rent the rest that you don't have. And what I do is I help everybody with the flies. I'm not your typical, hey, let's get online in the United States and get flies. I'm getting flies from all over the world, extremely custom flies. And so they come from Germany. They'll come from Australia sometimes. Canada, I get a bunch from a friend. And these are people that do not mess around, and I'm one of them. And so I have a new fly as well. It's just a rendition of a flexo crab, just some changes I've made, but it's been eaten about 30 times this year.
Is that right?
Yeah. I got a really good new one. So, it's fine to buy these flies. I do suggest buying some from the fly shops. Always support your local fly shop, but that's going to be more your bonefish stuff, your tarpon stuff. You start messing with permit. A lot of times it helps a little bit just to have something a little different. That being said, I bring a bag of markers, and I don't bring just tan or brown, or black. I bring white, I bring blue, I bring olive. We'll color if that fly gets refused, we'll color it.
Oh.
And we'll color blue claws on it or olive claws, and put a little red on the tips and black on, some of the legs. And if we are not liking the color and we're out of the fly that we really like, we're trying to doctor them up just to look like the last ones that have been working. Now that might be in our heads, but it doesn't matter. Your head needs to be in the right place too. So
yeah, I love that. That's a great tip. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Oh my God. Markers it's a good one. Not everybody, you don't see on packing lists all the time. But
you don't. That'd be a new one.
Yeah.
So you show up with a bag full of flies for all your guests and just say, I'll bring them, or do you recommend guests get their own flies?
So all these custom ones, I'll have them shipped to me, and then I'll just say, hey, okay, what am I supplementing out of what you already have? A lot of my guests have a bonefish flies, they've been doing saltwater fishing for so long, you end up with so many of these damn things. But they'll, if I'm like, okay, hey, get this stuff from your store, get these tarpon flies, get these bonefish flies. If you don't have the specific ones, run down to the store, order them online, which is more common these days. And I'll take care of all the other more custom stuff. And then I'll put together boxes. I'll bring them for everybody, and then everybody just usually pays me after. There's only cash in Cuba, so there's
really?
no credit cards.
Okay.
Yeah. So cash is a hot commodity over there. So try and keep it in everybody's pockets as long as possible, because there's no getting any more. There's no ATM or anything. Our cards don't work. It's you got to bring a lot of cash with you.
No kidding. And you're paying cash for what? Lodging, food, the guides,
Oh no,
renting?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So all your trip portion, the all-inclusive trip, that's all paid to me, and then I send it off to Avalon. And so all your main stuff. So what's not what you need to bring cash for is for gratuity, of course, and for the it's not like a lodge staff. So we're staying in a hotel, and but so you've got all kinds of staff there, bartenders and housekeeping, and I even like to drop some money to the landscaping crew and stuff like that, because everybody's getting all these tips around there. They don't get tipped, and so
Yeah.
I try and I educate everybody on this stuff. I mean, they do not make much money in Cuba. It's very, very difficult. I sometimes bring an entire extra piece of luggage of gifts for all of them. So
Good for you.
yeah, all you need for cash is your tip money. If you want to bring cigars or rum home, which there still is an embargo, but if you just say, if they ask you when you come back over, I don't recommend this, but I tell everybody, if you want to bring cigars home, when they ask you if you have cigars, you have to say no. They're basically prompting you and looking at you like, do not tell me you have cigars. They don't want to take your cigars. Honestly, I've watched it firsthand. They don't want to take our cigars and stuff like that. What they don't want is, any people bringing them back to sell them, so if you bring a box of cigars home or two, almost every one of my guests do, whether they're for them or for their buddies. Yeah. It's fine, but they could take them. I've got an unbelievable cigar connection there. Best I've found in a long time. He's a good friend now. And he also, hosts some, like welcome parties with me in town of Camagüey for the trip. And any little bit of spending money, if you're going to spend like a day, if we're going to go to Havana, before, or go to Camagüey before. So just a little bit. And then what else do you need cash
What do you
for?
tip a guide? Like, are you talking American money you're tipping a guide? Like, how much would you give a guide?
Yeah, this changed in like 2020. It was like it was total pain. We were having to change our American dollars at the bank for either euros or for Canadian dollars. Then we'd get to Cuba, and then we'd take those euros or Canadian dollars and we'd turn them into cook. It was a currency for tourists, essentially, in Cuba. It wasn't for the Cuban people. Yeah, it was just for tourists. So, so then you've lost like 30%. And then, if you still have some left over, then you got to give them the kook back. They'll give you the euros or Canadian dollars. Then you come home to the United States and you change those back to American dollars. So that's all long gone. So, but now in 2020, they even have American dollar stores now. And so they want American dollars. So it works out perfect. So our tips for the week are around, let's see, we do 300, I say minimum for the guides. That's 50 per person per day. You have 6 days of fishing. So you got 300 to the guide. And then they have a marina staff that like watches all our gear and all the stuff. And because our gear, one thing cool about this trip, just real quick, is the first morning you go there, we set up all the rods. And we keep our our luggage that carries our rods, our carry-ons. We'll keep that at the marina in storage, and everything's watched for the whole week. We don't touch our rods. We don't do anything after when we're done fishing. We just go right back to the hotel and go back there in the morning, and all our stuff is cleaned and with fresh water. And so we take care of the marina staff too, and the managers there, Yoel and Boris, are good buddies of mine. And so we tip them 150 to 200. And then, the rest is just like I said, just some staff at the hotels, like your drivers, for the golf carts that they call electric cars. I think it's hilarious. And then, bartenders, housekeeping. So not much cash you really need. Everything's paid for.
Sounds like quite a few people needing tips. I mean, that's a lot of different folks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the hotel, they're more $1, $1 for a drink,
really?
and $10,
Okay.
$20 to the housekeeping. But yeah. So we usually, most people don't go through a full 100, unless they're drinking a lot or something. The $100, and I make sure like bring them in ones. Don't bring a bunch of 20s.
There's no change.
Yeah. So they do have their the staff. They'll still want to change out their ones sometimes, but it's best for us just to bring ones. I like bringing $2 bills.
Huh, interesting. What are the Cuban people like? And how do they like Americans?
They're amazing. We get along so well. Our governments don't get along, but us as people, man, we're like so close to them too. Cuba's only like 90 miles away, so
Right.
and so many Cubans, have come to America, and so yeah. But I don't know. Some people maybe met some Cubans in America. It's a little different than, of course, in the homeland, but they're amazing. They love their country. They're super positive. They're very hardworking, very happy. They love, Americans are known to tip more. No offense to any other country out there or anything. It's just that our tipping is just more in the United States than anywhere else that I'm aware
Well,
of.
like in Europe, you don't tip like your waiter in Europe in most countries. They don't
Right.
expect to tip, So
Right. And
maybe that's
they're
why.
learning more about it. I was with some guests from Italy, and I was like kind of, explaining to them. I'm like, listen, it's the way it is. If somebody goes to Italy and they say this is how it is in Italy, you just kind of follow it. And so they're getting better, a lot better about it.
Uh-huh.
They've almost made it like really the guides. I mean, most of the money they're making is the tips. Like they don't make really anything tips. Like they don't really get paid much.
Oh, really?
No one in Cuba does. And but that being said, a fly fishing guide is like being a doctor in Cuba. But
Is that right?
It's because with the amount of money they make, but the vast majority of that is in tips. And
So $300 is a lot of money to a Cuban for a week.
Oh yeah. And they'll do 4 groups a month, and and so you got 2 people though in a boat, so they're getting like 600 a week, and do 4 groups a month, so $2,400. Like I said, I mean that we wouldn't really be able to survive on that. It's difficult in the United States to survive on that kind of money, but that is like, you're like a king in Cuba.
You're rolling in it over there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, talk to me about the food.
My favorite.
We talked before the show. All you listeners, I know the answer to this, but I wanted to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably more tough on the food than anybody else. Some of my guests come and they're like, I think it's fine, and I prep them by saying like, okay, everything on this trip is phenomenal, but the food. Now, I want to clarify. If you're eating at somebody's home, in Cuba, the food will be amazing.
Have you done that?
Oh yeah. I've got actually a lot of friends in Cuba, and so that stuff's good. And they have what's called paladars as well, like in the cities, and that's more like the better food. It's not like government mandated food, and so they'll come and go. Like they'll be there and then they're not there anymore. And it's usually it's people's like homes, people's properties. And so yeah, you can have good food. Havana's got some good food. Camagüey's got some pretty good food, but you have to understand it's already difficult to get anything in Cuba. So, and we're at a hotel. So you're pairing hotel buffet food, which is known to be not very good, of quality, with a country that can't get anything. So like we'll run out of bread like 2 days in. We ran out of bottled water 3 days into the trip. It is extremely difficult.
What do you do then if you don't have water?
I have to bribe somebody. I got to find somebody and bribe them and get boxes of water. And I don't even necessarily have to bribe them because I know quite a few people at Cayo Cruz, but still they like Americans so much that they're like, oh yeah, we'll help you out for sure. They know we're there for fishing. But yeah, sometimes I have to go to a different hotel. Sometimes I have to do all kinds of creative things just to make everything run smoothly. But it's awful. So what I tell people, like you mentioned, like, oh, hey, what's a great place to go eat after? Okay, so what we're doing? We're bringing like Ritz crackers and cheese whiz, and we're bringing beef jerky and beef sticks, peanut butter and jelly. There's like rarely limes there, so I bring like these lime packets from a company called Packet Gourmet. There's no condiments. I bring mustard. I bring mayonnaise. I'll bring ketchup. Sometimes for people, and then hot sauce, of course, very, very popular. Another good move is bring tortillas. Tortillas is not a thing in Cuba. So there's of course rice, beans, pork, chicken. So you bring hot sauce and a tortilla, and a bag of tortillas. You're looking a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah, you just don't. That one's a little bit more sure. That used to be the main move. My main move now is peanut butter and jelly and beef jerky. Yeah, and I honestly don't even like the bottled water there. It's got like a funny taste. And I don't know what it was. You know what? I never really liked food, anyways, in that kind of format. Like buffet. My mom was a nurse, and I was always weirded out about eating in hospitals. And I think I don't know if I thought they were like body parts or something. I was a kid, but I think I took like that whole thing of like not liking like buffet style like that, and so I'm harder on the food probably than anybody. But I also like to, set people up for, like
not to be disappointed.
Yeah. I'd rather over deliver. Yeah. Low expectations, over deliver.
Peanut butter and jelly is over delivering. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh my God, yeah. So I'll have a list of like this stuff. And
can I grill the peanut butter and jelly? I like grilled peanut butter and jelly. Is that possible? Okay, I could survive on that.
Oh yeah. One of the newest moves is, another good one is truffle salt. That changed a lot. Yeah, truffle salt. I mean, I have it. A lot of us have it in our homes, these days. But, man, that's a powerful taste, and that can fix a lot of food. So truffle salt was the newest hit. But somebody that brought tortillas, we were grabbing cheese from the buffet. And the guy that makes the burgers, you'll be like, okay, we got burgers over here, but we don't have buns. Or you'll be like, yeah, or like, hey, can I have some pizza? And they're like, no. And you're like, Papas Fritas? And like, maybe. It's like cereal, no milk. It's just like they never have like everything together. But anyways, the guy that does the burgers with no buns, he'll have hot dogs or like buns and it's terrible. I don't even want to get into it. But anyways, so we'll bring the tortillas over to him, and he'll make quesadillas. So we got our hot sauce, we got cheese from the buffet, and we got our tortillas. I mean, all of a sudden we got quesadillas.
Well, hopefully the fishing's good, because I could suffer through some horrible food for a week if the fishing's good.
Absolutely,
it's got to be one or the other. Good food, bad fishing. Bad food, good fishing. One or the other.
Right. Yeah, you definitely don't go to Cuba to eat. Like I said, I love all my people there, and I know they try.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult to get everything, even for large hotels. But yeah, I don't like the food. They know it. They laugh with me. They know I hate it.
That's funny. All right, so Matt, what do the Cuban people eat in their own homes then? You said the food's a little better in their own homes.
Well, man, they used to, roast pigs and stuff more. Like it's really difficult. It's super sad. Which is why I bring a lot of stuff there, medicine and car parts, and basically anything they need, because they can't get anything. And so food is one of those things that it's super difficult. They have Cuban pesos. So one thing I didn't say is that kook is gone. We're just operating with those American dollars. We do need to bring some Canadian dollars or euros if people want to get like a massage or some sort of activities. Usually it's to non-anglers. So you can bring non-anglers. It's a phenomenal place because it's great hotels, beautiful beaches. And so they tend to spend that extra money. We're usually fishing all day. So we're fine with just dollars. We don't buy anything. But yeah, it's like I said, like massages or something, or a catamaran trip. But yeah, so they did away with that whole kook. And so now there's just a Cuban peso. And so, man, it's even like $100 in Cuban pesos for like a pound of rice now. So they're eating like rice, chicken, pork, and beans. I mean, honestly, the guys I fish with, they eat the same thing. They're eating the same damn thing every day.
Sounds like Haiti.
Yeah.
I've been to Haiti 3 times, and they're eating a lot of rice and beans,
Yeah.
maybe a little meat in there every now and then.
Yeah. But yeah, they used to, roast lambs and roast pigs and stuff. Maybe things will change, at some point. The whole Venezuela thing and now Russia, it's taken a toll. And COVID, of course, has really taken a toll on the country. There was some, people were kind of the Cuban people were kind of lashing out recently and protesting, and so, but they've got COVID under wraps. They're really proud of their vaccine over there. And yeah, it's pretty much done. Like barely anybody gets it, and so they do a lot of good job with certain things. And I mean, obviously they've done a phenomenal job protecting these fisheries, but man, there's some things they cannot figure out,
All right. So how did you get into these hosted trips? What's your story?
Well, I started doing it when I owned Binturn Anglers and Colorado. It started with the Idaho trip. That was actually the first one I ever did. And so I've been doing that one like 17 years now or something. And I've been doing the and I've been doing the Alaska one 11 years now. And me and my partner, we were big steelhead fishermen. Of course, we wanted to find the next hard thing, right? Everything's got to be, how hard can we make it? So steelhead was our next thing after trout. And we just got really into it and then started traveling around. And I was like, hey, man, we should go check out Alaska. I was like, I read a little bit of stuff online. It was like not much information, barely at all. But I was like, let's go check it out. And we went there and, man, found a gem. And when I first went there, of course, I mean, there was like nobody doing it. So there's some people doing it now. It hasn't really affected the fishery a little bit, but not much. It's a really strong run and a lot of rivers and plenty of fish for everybody. But when I was first going, there was like nobody there. I swear I had the first spay rod on one of these rivers. So yeah, we just found a gem, and I was like, we're starting a company here. I am, or something. So we started hosting and just doing like groups for a couple weeks and doing that. Between that and Idaho, that's when I got into bringing people on hosted trips. Well, just like a lot of people in fly fishing, they tend to start looking to the salt, after a while. And so that's my favorite thing to do. You kind of evolve with things. I just get bored. And so I like doing different things. Like I love hunting, hunting's like close second to fishing for me. So permit fishing, Atlantic salmon fishing, steelhead fishing. And I like archery elk and archery deer. And
nice.
So, so that's like what I love doing. And I sold elk hunts and stuff for a while, but I can't do that and steelhead. And so, but I don't know. I love it, man. I love watching people smile. I love seeing people successful. I love having a part in it. And I love service. I was always a freak about service. And remember when the reviews were like all you could look at? Like I swear, I almost fired somebody once because we got a 4-star review. Like I was a freak about the reviews. I was difficult to work for. I'm like major perfectionist. Like
you had a lot of success because you ended up. How did you go from Peoria, Illinois, to Colorado to a painter, and it's somewhere in there you dropped out of school, right?
Yeah. I know. I don't know, man. I was always like entrepreneurial. I guess I was just meant to be. I actually started those painting companies. I was like 23 or something, 22 or 23, and then started Binturn Anglers. I was 27, and against a bunch of millionaires and billionaires, and we whooped them. But still success. They still did really well. They did a lot of their trips too, but felt like we won because we had so many guides and so many people wanted to come with us, and people liked us. We were just like different. We were in like a quintessential time where I was like, you could change things a little bit. Like I remember all the guides were like, "Don't put on a Pat's rubber legs. What are you, crazy?" And I was like, "Those things work. What are you?" Because they thought the hook was too big for the clients to fish. And I'm like, "That's absolutely
really?
Stupid." Oh my God, yeah, it was very real in Colorado. They're like, "No," and streamers, absolutely not. Like there was no giving them streamers.
What do you mean the hooks are too big for clients to fish? You mean it's hard to cast? What do you mean?
They didn't want them in their head. Yeah, they thought fly was too heavy. They didn't want to get hooked. They didn't want the people hooking themselves. I'm like, this is silly, And so it was
silly.
Weird things that we did that really propelled us forward. I was also super crafty. I knew that there was a Vail Resorts owned fly shop, and I knew that they had to offer other companies if the Vail Resorts Fly Shop did not offer a certain trip. So what did I do? I did horseback and fly fishing. I did cast and blast, clay pigeons and fly fishing. Did overnight float trips, and then I coined this one trip called the Cast and Taste, which was like a 3-course meal with wine pairing, and now
That's
that
great.
actual name is still being used, and
Cast
yeah,
and what?
Cast and Taste.
Cast and taste. There you go.
Yeah, so you go fishing, and the guide would be a chef, or a really, really good cook. So,
Oh, really?
so that's how we just, I don't know, that's what we did, and it worked really well.
Yeah. And how many guides so Minturn anglers, how many guides were you up to at your peak?
When I left in the last few years, it was like 60 some, guys.
Okay. It's a big
it
shop.
was a lot. Yeah, it was almost unmanageable.
So tell me about those early days. You're a painter, and what's going through your mind? Like, I got to get out of this. I don't like this. Or did you kind of like it and then got into fishing? How'd you get into fishing from painting?
Well, I was into fishing before it, and that was just what I was doing for a living. And I talked to so many people that painted. I feel like I used to laugh. It's like everybody should paint at least once in their life. It's kind of like everybody should be a waiter
I
or
painted a
waitress
house
once in their life.
Yep.
So yeah, I was like, I started doing more commercial stuff, and I wasn't like walking in and getting a check in the kitchen from the wife or husband. And I was like starting to wait to get paid from these contractors. And I was like, I am done with this. So I went to that guide school, and I did it for a year. And the entrepreneurial Matt was like, I can do this, and I was like, there's this little town, Minturn. They're supposed to start a ski resort, right up the road from us. I was like, let's start a fly shop here. And people thought we were nuts. But it worked.
Worked out. Good for
but
you.
Yeah,
man.
I didn't want to paint again. That's what it was. And I don't know.
That's what I
it's
figured.
been a fun lifestyle job. It's not always fruitful, money wise, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, all right. So tell me, when you look back on your career, what's the greatest obstacle you've had to overcome?
Oh my God. I'll laugh. The guides.
Guides. Where's my check? How come I didn't get a trip? That kind of thing, or what?
Yeah, I want to raise. It's not. I'm kind of messing with them and joking. It's usually staff. Customers are usually pretty easy. It's like any other job anywhere. Staffing's very difficult. I never figured out e-commerce. I never really figured out how to make a ton of money either. I swear we were making the same amount of money when there was 10 of us guiding when there was 60 some.
That's a problem.
E-commerce was a lot, man. If you're talking fly tying materials and leaders and tippet, like you got to write a description, your own description of those for every one of those things. I mean, you need a buyer, you need an online manager. Just retail was just, I God bless anybody that does retail, and like you got it. Everybody needs to shop at these local shops,
That's
man.
true.
They won't be around. I mean, they will not. It's the shops like that in other industries, they're dying. So like you go to these big box stores, and there's nothing against those. Sometimes you have to go there to get swivels, or some sort of dirty stuff you're rigging up, because fly shops don't always have it. But yeah, you really got to buy everything at these shops. These are the guys that know, everything. They're doing it day in and day out. So, but it's like I said, that's super difficult as retail.
So are you thinking that the fly shop, the mom and pop fly shop, is going to be around or not be around?
Man, I don't know. It could turn into like an online mom and pop. Like, I don't even know. I don't think they're going to entirely go away, because people are going to go in there, but you can't go in there and just buy a fishing license. Like I'll stick up for the fly shops right now. They don't make any money off those fishing licenses, like 3 pennies.
Of course.
So if you come in there with a credit card and, looking for a license, I think I started doing this. I didn't think it was legal, but like I charge a 3% fee, because I'm like, we're going to lose money getting you this fishing license if we take this credit card. And so yeah, and so buy some flies, check out, see what you're short on in your bag. If you need some leaders or tippets, that keeps the doors open in those places. And,
the local, I think there's something to be said for the local tie, right? I mean, sometimes there are local patterns that are just a little different. They're on the water every day and they're worth the money. Go in there and get I don't know. I get my pheasant tails online, but there's like these local ties that people have really found work well.
I know, man. It's crazy. It's just like these crabs and shrimps, flies, and from we're talking about in Cuba.
Yeah.
They're totally different in Mexico and Cuba, the Bahamas. It's like they're Florida. There's no fly. There's like a handful of flies that like work. Certain places like crabs. They're all different everywhere you go. And so, but yeah, back to like trout stuff. I mean, that's how we end up with like 10 of these fly boxes, all these random flies in it, is because one of them works really well. You needed it when you were at that certain destination.
In that area.
So
Right. Exactly.
yeah.
All right. And I want to shift gears, Matt, and talk a little bit. Let's go back to bonefish and permit. I would love to have you kind of talk some people through like like give us some tips on the whole process of spotting, casting, fly movement, hook set, fighting, landing. Maybe could you talk about bonefish? That seems to be the star of the show down there. Maybe we can talk about permit too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, like I said earlier, like you need you do a 7 or 8 weight rod. You can even use a 9 weight. There's some big bonefish in Cuba, so there's nothing wrong with a 9 weight. But 8 weight's the most common, and you'll run a 12-pound mono leaders. You can do fluorocarbon leaders. Some places it's necessary to use fluorocarbon, even if you're adding some on the end of your leader, and just even to make them longer leaders. Some people will use even upwards of like 16-foot leaders sometimes. You don't have to do that for permit or for bonefish. So you're using mono leaders, and any of your favorite brand, that you want is fine. And we always are tying loop knots, to the flies. So we got to learn, one of those knots. I just do like the traditional one. And so, always ask your guide what flies, to use. You never have the right ones. Every time you hand them the box, they're like, what else do you have? But they'll find something to use. And luckily you can get away with a little bit more in Cuba. And so, so traditional, mainly shrimp flies, for the bonefish. The main thing that people struggle with in saltwater is the cast. A double haul is very difficult. You can get away with a single haul. You can get away with it in Cuba. You can't get away with it in other places, especially if that wind picks up. It's just going to take your fly line. So casting, practicing. Not necessarily just in the lawn, but go to like your local. If you're not near many fish, go to a pond where there's carp, or some grass carp or something. You can see them cruising around, and you can practice getting that fly the right distance in front of the fish. It'll vary. Some guides will say, 3 feet or 1 meter or whatever. That's another thing that kind of gets people in Cuba, is like they'll talk meters, and we're like, what? But they're getting better at knowing feet too. They got to do the math in their head instead of us doing the math. And but yeah, that first cast is so important. So really practicing the double haul and everything, and then with the shrimp fly, it's a long and slow strip, and get that hand right back to your fly line to keep it moving, essentially. Now, if you were throwing a crab fly for a bonefish, mainly use those for permit. You're trying to like just slowly move it. So you're only moving it, stripping like inches, at a time. You do when you make that cast, unless it's like a perfect, laser beam and lays out perfectly straight and turns over. You need to do at least a quick strip to get that line, get any of the slack out of the line, because those fish could be sitting there gnawing on the fly, and you could be doing those little crab strips, and there's so much slack in the line, it's not even moving, so they've already eaten it and spit it out, and so getting that slack out of the line right away is super important. And then when you do get one to eat, you can't, everybody calls it same everywhere. It's a trout set. So everybody's, people get into trout fishing or something like that. And, they get so used to just raising the rod right away. You cannot do that. You have to strip set it, just like with the streamer for trout or something, but it's known as trout setting. So that is the number one mistake. It's the number one thing that happens when people get their first permit to eat, is it either scares them, or it's just the memory, the muscle memory of just raising the rod, and you'll hear your guy behind you like, oh, like breathe it, or like some profanities in Spanish, and so.
So what's wrong with the trout set? Is it just not hard enough, or does it scare the fish? Do they see the rod go up in the air? What happens?
Yeah, it pulls the fly out like the wrong the wrong way. It pulls it out of their mouth essentially. And
Okay.
so when you keep the rod down in your strip setting, you're setting the hook into their mouth by pulling the line, as opposed to like raising a rod. If you raise a rod, you can really like pull it out fast and more than you think. And it's just like the angle, it just doesn't work. And so you'll miss them. And so you got to make sure you don't trout set. So you've made your beautiful cast, you're 3 feet in front of the fish, and it could depend. If the fish are moving faster, you need to throw it a little farther in front of them. Kind of like, similar to throwing a football, except, the person needs to catch the football. We need the fish to come to the fly as it's sinking to roughly the depth of the water they're in. And so if you're only throwing a foot in front of them, they're going to be still moving and it's going right over their head. They never saw it. And if you throw it too far in front of them, then it'll sink too much. It could get stuck on the bottom. It could be lots of things, or they just don't see it as well. But you're also giving them a chance to see line. So there's that sweet spot, depending upon how fast they're moving. Like I said, usually it's a few feet. You got it there. Okay, it turns, it sees it. Okay, the guide's like, okay, it ate it, strip set it. All right, you've gotten that far, right? All right, the fish is on. That's good. These bonefish will rip. I mean, I don't care if they're 8 inches long, like they rip. And when people catch their first one, say it's small, say it was wherever, certain places in the world have smaller bonefish, and they'll see it come into the boat and they'll be like, that thing just did that? I mean, it'll go
really?
to the back 1, 2, 3 times, a little 8-inch bonefish. So what'll happen is you've got that line, that extra line that you just stripped in to catch the fish, or maybe you didn't cast all your line out. So you need to take your left hand, if you're a righty, if you cast with your right hand, strip with your left, then make like a loop and hold your arm up high and clear your line from it wrapping around the butt section of your rod, wrapping around the reel, wrapping around the reel handle, because it's on and it's pretty fast. And once they're hooked, you don't lose many bonefish. Permit, they've got like a mouth. It's kind of like bubble gum. So if they stay on too long, or you're putting too much pressure on them, that hook will just come right out. It'll kind of eventually just rip out of their lip. But bonefish, they got a harder mouth, and so you're doing a little better.
Once you hook
Tarpon,
them, you got them. Okay.
Yeah. Tarpon, they got a bony mouth. They're difficult to land. A lot of people talk about how many tarpon you jumped. You basically that you hooked and had on, because you don't land as many. The hooks are a little better these days, a lot better, chemically sharpened, so you can get them in that bone a little bit enough, but you get them in the side of the mouth or something like that is best for tarpon, to land them. But bonefish are, like I said, you don't lose too many. Once they're on, you're pretty much good. It's just whether or not you do something to break them off, like the line wrapping around them, the reel or something, and it's just pop, it's gone. But other than that, they can be really user friendly and great way to get into saltwater fishing.
So you got to make sure the line isn't wrapped around your leg or the back of the reel or the butt of the reel or something like that.
Then So I was gonna say too, no shoes, because then you can't feel that you're stepping on the line. That's why you're always barefoot up there, or wear a pair of like socks, like socks that you wear with tennis shoes, so you don't get all sunburnt. And so then you could still feel that line. But yeah, like you said, there's about 500 things in that boat that line can get wrapped on. So a good fishing partner clearing your line is also important. But so that fish is on, it's running. All right, it's went. You're tired. It's already ran to the backing once. You reeled it in. It ran back out again. It's like, how, you don't want too loose of a drag, So there's a happy median. Otherwise, that thing could, take off like 2 or 3 times, like I said. But you get into the boat, they're great for pictures. So you got to be a little careful. They have like a bonefish smegma all over them. As soon as it touches your shirt, you're covered in it. Tarpon, it's the same thing. It's just like this slime that's on them, and it's all over. Some people only bring like a couple shirts throughout the week, and they look absolutely ridiculous by the end of the week because they've caught so many bonefish, and it's jumping. They can't hold. They're hard to hold, and slipping out of your hands. So you bear hug them, and it's all over you.
That's funny.
But then it's a picture. Sometimes if it's a big one, let your guys hold the fish first. You know what I mean? Like, they're good at holding them. They know how to get good pictures. Yeah, and they're not going to drop them. Then you hold the fish, but that's for your people that are beginners.
All right. So how do you get new anglers to relax when they've got something, when they're getting a shot at especially at a permit?
Good guides will, which they're getting better at this. The Cuban guides speak good English. They actually go to classes to speak English, and so very gifted anglers, very very good casters, so very good permit fishermen. But they're good at instructing, and uh, sometimes I notice people in other countries are more quiet. They more take you to the fish. They're still good guides, but the Cuban guides they'll really talk with you and work with you. Yeah, so if they're good, they'll be like, okay, now there's there's a permit coming, okay? So relax, just breathe, and it's never going to work. Everybody's always going to freak out. They don't when there's bonefish, so some people like, just tell me it's a bonefish if it's a permit coming. Because a lot of times
Yeah.
those bonefish are difficult to see. The guide's even just telling you, cast at 11 o'clock or cast at 1 o'clock. You may never see the damn thing. But it just depends on the person. And all you can do is really talk to people and just say, just like you said, relax, and you can do this. You got it.
Okay. So you
And that's
talk
one
'em.
thing I do in the boat when I fish with people. Sometimes I'll bounce around with the customers, and so they almost get like a second guide in the boat. And I'll say the same things, or I'll relay what the guide is trying to tell them. Like right next to them, I'll stand on the bow. I'll take all their line and I'll manage it. I'll make sure it's not wrapped around anything. I'll make sure the line's not, you got the first line that's going to go out of the rod is on the top of the pile. So every time you get in the boat, for instance, here's another thing. When you're saltwater fishing, make a cast. Okay. You can't just pull all your line out, throw it in the bottom of the boat or throw it in the bow of the boat, because it's going to be, you're going to have and it's going to come out of your rod when you're casting. It's going to be on the bottom. That's how we end
Yeah.
up with a big bird's nest of line.
Okay.
So when you
Makes
get when
sense.
you get in the boat, I don't care what you're doing, any of the species, you need to pull all your line out, make a cast, and then we set your line in the bottom of the boat. And it's like for permit. I love talking about permit. If you're permit fishing, like 15 things need to go right. I tell people if 14 things go right, you're not going to catch a permit. And so that's one of the many things, that happens is like the line's tangled up. Now he's got a knot in the rod. It went, tried to go through one of the guides, pop, broke the permit off. Some of those things are just accidents, and they just happen, but you try and eliminate as much as possible. And control as much as possible. That's why that fishing partner in the boat is huge.
Sounds like
it could be your buddy sitting there being like, you got it, relax, or something.
Yeah. Usually go with two guys, two guests per boat. Is that normal?
Yeah. Unless you want to pay for a single occupancy boat. That's more for the serious angler, that's really trying to learn a lot, get a lot of fishing in, because of course you're going to switch off when you got your buddy in the boat or a partner. And, but like real serious permit fishermen, you want to catch a permit, you should probably get your own boat.
One guy.
Because if you're getting all the shots at permit, in Cayo Cruz, I like for people, a boat to have, 8 to 10, shots a day at permit, like legit shots. And they're eager. So if you're getting that many shots and you're the only person in the boat fishing, you got a high chance to catch them. If you're switching off, those 4 that you messed up, that might be your only 4 for the day. If you messed up 4 and you did 4 good ones and one of those permit 8, that's a better way to do it. Now, if you're splitting it with your partner, he messes up 4 and you mess up 4, that's okay. It's still fun. We're there to have fun. It's fishing. But if you're really, really serious about catching a permit, you may want to consider just paying the $1,500, and just going with your guide all by yourself. That's how you catch, quite a few.
Yeah, that's awesome.
My experience.
All right, we're just wrapping things up here, Matt. I always ask at the end of my show about your favorite place for the hungry, thirsty angler, but it sounds like we already covered that, and there isn't any place.
Yes, there isn't. No, it's me, and it's everybody coming down to the table. Sometimes we won't even go to the buffet to eat. Everybody will bring their stuff down, and we end up making our own dinner out of all the creative things that everybody brought that wouldn't spoil or are illegal to come into Cuba.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're doing that while we're tying flies.
Oh, tie fly. Do they have, beer or cerveza down there? Or what do they have to drink?
Yeah, it's all the normal cocktails. The problem is a lot of the mixers they'll be out of, and so but they've got some good beer down there that people seem to like, and so each boat gets a handful of beers, and each. And then when you come back, it's all inclusive. It's all you can drink. And, there's several bars at the hotel. And so, yeah. But a lot of people like to drink rum because they're in Cuba. Drink rum, beautiful glass of rum and some cigars,
There you go. Well, Matt, this has been great talking to you, man. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, man. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. If you can't tell, I love talking. I love talking about any fishing, but yeah, saltwater, Cuba, permit, big bonefish. That's easy to keep me going.
Yeah, no problem. Just before we go, I just wanted to ask you, your guy spent a lot of years in the fly fishing industry, and I'm kind of wondering, like, what has fishing meant to you?
What has it meant to me? Man, it's my whole life. Yeah, it's a whole lifestyle. It has to be sometimes, like I said, it's not the most profitable, business to be in, but fishing for me is honestly, it's a lot work. It's my addiction is seeing people be successful, seeing people be happy, and posting them, whether I'm in Alaska, wherever I am, to make sure that there's as little problems as humanly possible, and that they're having the best time they can. Because I know it's a big deal maybe for them to come, and I know they're creating memories for a whole lifetime. So really, that's what fishing is for me. Like I said, I told you, I'm a big hunter. I like permit fishing, and I like Atlantic salmon fishing and stuff, but that's about as far as it goes. I really, my addiction is I live vicariously through all the customers and them being successful and learning and getting better and getting what they came for, so yeah, that's what fishing is for me. I'm different, though. You probably won't hear that from anybody.
Sounds like you're in the right business.
Yeah, I like it.
How can people get in touch with you and hear more or book a trip?
Oh, just you can reach out, Alaska Steelhead Company, Facebook Messenger, or just reach out online with the just the message, page.
Okay.
But yeah, give a call. Anything. I love talking about fishing and helping out. If you don't need to book a trip or just have some questions, don't hesitate to call me. But I'm happy to help with if anybody's just trying to go to Cuba by themselves, or if you want to go on one of my hosted trips. Yeah, whatever I can do, just let me know, and I'll do whatever I can for you. Yeah.
Wonderful. There you go, folks. Give Matt a call. Matt, I wish you extraordinary success in all your adventures to follow. And folks, thank you so much for listening. You can always check out our show notes on the Destination Angler website for info on Matt and how to book a trip. And check out Instagram and Facebook for pictures of his top flies and some other pictures he's going to send me on this wonderful place in Cuba. You can DM me or email me with comments and suggestions at shaig50@gmail.com. And if you like the show, please share it with a buddy. As always, our music is by a Brothers Fountain, a really cool little band out of Colorado. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again soon. Tight lines, everyone.
Well, I'll go from the land to the shining sea. But I know there's more to life than what the eye can see.